This one I got to see. This we got to know. This is, it sounds like a joke. Well, then obviously Kurt didn't write it. This is, according to this, woke Seattle Comedy Club bans Kurt Metzger. Oh, dear. It couldn't possibly be for low turnout and offensive shitty behavior, or just no draw. Let's see.
So guess what, everybody? There's this comedy place in Seattle. Now, I like Seattle as a city.
You got to give context.
So
you gotta give context. I like Seattle as a city. Based on what? Based on it's a very liberal town because of the money that Starbucks and Google brought. Because of all the tax revenue from those two ginormous companies, basically creating a tax net that shoves it ahead of all of its contemporary cities. And it's like, imagine if Portland had a fucking giant Google office and Microsoft and Amazon and a port. And yeah, although I will say, if you ever go to Seattle, you have to do the underground tour because the whole city was built like shit and it slid down and buried the old town underneath the mud. And so you can walk down and you're underground, but you're seeing what used to be street level shops, and the windows are there's dirt. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And if you ever want to dive into a really fun, it's not, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory. It's sort of more of a mythology, but the idea that there was great floods and they weren't that long ago. So it wasn't like 4,000, or 2,000 years ago, Noah's Ark flood. There was like another big flood that was contemporaneous to sort of, I don't know, the late 1800s, something. I don't know. Anyways, yes, amazing oysters in Seattle. That is true, Lindsay. But apparently, there were giant floods, and then they erased everyone's memory. It's kind of like it's like a mix of like, it's not the alien flashy thing. It's more, it's like a biblical myth mixed with alien flashy thing. That's it. Templeton s'arrête, merci beaucoup, Dorian.
I'm gonna give context.
You're leaving out valuable context.
So there's this comedy club called Capitol Hill Comedy /Bar. And
I think they just call it Comedy Bar, I'm guessing. I don't think you pronounce the slash. I think it's just Capitol Hill Comedy Bar. And probably when they don't have comedy there, they just call it like Capitol Hill Bar, and then comedy like Cap Hill Comedy or something like that the rest of the 3 days a week when they have shows. I'm just spitballing. Fuck what I know. The next time I come to Seattle, I'm doing a theater with sexy... I didn't say anything.
Just a quick prediction. They're not going to be around long.
Why? You don't think the friendship dungeon will turn things around? A friendship dungeon. I'll bet you that's exactly what it says.
So, Kurt,
Jesus Christ. Get over yourself.
Did you get this email to you?
By the way, they have a fairly full calendar. I will give them that. This isn't a weekends only place.
Wait,
where did the email come from?
So I have a bunch of...
Oh, somebody just said, how I found a used DVD at a shop of a movie you did called Lightning Bug. That was directed by my buddy Robert Hall, rest his soul, who was the bass player in my band, who died last year. And that was his directorial debut. And yeah, holds a special place in my heart. Good people, good time.
Dates that my manager got me. So I didn't know I had a date at this spot at all.
So Kurt was booked at this club, unbeknownst to him.
No, I would have found out sooner or later.
Yeah, but he didn't.
Okay, so I'm sitting there, and he texts me. My manager texts me. So the reason I text you was you had just told me your Seattle thing where the agent didn't go.
This is really good so far. I'm wrapped in his attention. I feel like I'm almost like transported into the story. You know what I mean? When you feel it, you can smell the smells, which is unfortunate.
this is crazy, this email. But my manager, he goes, I've never seen a message like this in my entire life.
Oh, so this was a message that was sent to your manager.
Okay, and I didn't understand it even had anything to do with me at first because I just kept seeing Dave Smith's name. Okay,
so let me just show this. So this was an email sent to Kurt's manager who booked him at this club in October.
He didn't know.
So this was an email sent from the club. From this club. This is the email.
Okay.
After careful consideration and discussion with our team, investors, local comedians, and neighborhood advocacy groups.
This is very Seattle. I don't know why you're even fucking surprised. You're shocked that that's how, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's how Portland is too. Portland and Seattle, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Aren't these places like progressive nests wherein it takes a community, it takes a village to put a show on and you got to get it? I mean, have they not been paying attention? Yeah, I mean, obviously, hashtag rip Portland. I'm sorry to bring it up. That was too soon.
What? We've encountered a challenging situation that requires us to revisit the planned shows. Capitol Hill, that's the neighborhood, and a comedy club, right? Is known for its progressive values. And we receive, and some of those progressive values turned out to be groupthink and censorship. Capitol
Or they just, they're really concerned that somebody who's just offensive for offensive sake and is just kind of thinks being a dick on stage is something you could do in lieu of actual comedy, might actually come up and do a show. Or quite frankly, that it's not even him. That they've heard you reading his jokes on the air, and they're like, those suck. Those are terrible.
Hill is known for its progressive values, and we've received significant feedback expressing concerns about the alignment of these upcoming shows with the neighborhood ethos.
Okay, Jimmy, let me just interject, because this is my favorite thing of this. I'm not at all mad at all. This is a gift. When I read this, I go, wait, isn't Capitol Hill where they set up the Chaz? Remember when their neighborhood ethos was they seceded from the Union?
Yes.
For the summer.
So this is in that neighborhood in Seattle where they tried to set up this anarchist kind of 4-block radius.
I didn't know it was back as part of America.
It was a
okay. First of all, no. No. Not indicative of Capitol Hill in general. That was more of a downtown thing. They took over part of the park over there. It wasn't a neighborhood choice. These are people who moved in. Secondly, it ended because the people of the Chaz killed 2 black kids and covered up the crime. You know, because fuck the police. Yeah, because all cops are bastards. And if they find evidence of our murder in this vehicle, we'll all go to jail, like real jail, not occupied tent jail. And therefore, we got to drag the bodies out onto the cement and then just rifle through the car, tear off like anything all the fabric, everything, just gut it, basically. Yeah, progressive values. I'm just saying that was a misalignment.
It was a total joke. They ended up killing a kid.
Yeah, it was.
2.
It was a joke, except when they killed like 3 unarmed teens. Ironic. It was the most ironic city in the world, it's known as. And,
so let me finish reading this.
They have advocacy groups that weigh in on comedy bookings.
They have advocacy groups that weigh in on comedy bookings.
Of course they do. It's Seattle. It's an LGBT thing, more than likely. And then there's probably some class groups that also view themselves as Marxist or something that will kick in. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but other times you tip the scales and they're like, yeah, good point. Fuck this guy.
Adventure.
And the other thing too is you do realize that if you were really, really, really fucking funny, it wouldn't work. They could advocate all the fuck they want and you'd still have the gig.
To say they don't.
This feedback includes concerns from local advocacy groups that are deeply embedded in our demented mental community and work towards upholding its values.
Okay.
First off,
Yeah, that's a word that Jimmy's not that familiar with, so it must be weird.
comedy is not about upholding any value except comedy. And what comedy is supposed to poke holes in the status quo and make people uncomfortable.
No, that's what your comedy does. Comedy is supposed to be funny. And humor is about, most of the time, two things: connection and surprise. An instant connection between you and the audience, and you articulating something that they're feeling in a way that maybe they just, because they're not a comedian, don't think of it as that. They carry it around like a little stress ball, and you come in and you go, actually, it's kind of like this. And everybody goes, oh yeah, it is kind of like that. I thought it was just me, right? That's that one thing. That's the community part of it. And the other part is surprise, where I wasn't expecting somebody to say that or them to say it that way. Neither of those things ever happens with Jimmy. There's a certain element of his audience that gripe together, but it's not because it's based on a like cathartic feeling. It's just kind of disassociative anger and stuff. I suppose, sarcasm posing as comedy. But in his defense, this is his wacky face he's making. So that this is rock solid. He's a professional comedian. They're doing stand-up comedy, which, by the way, if you don't know, is his show on a stage in front of a crowd.
That's the best form of comedy. That's Lenny Bruce.
No. By the way, go watch Lenny Bruce's feelings about obscenity. Just go watch the last movie he made, the last video of him performing. It was film. So the last film of him before he died, arguing about why he was getting arrested and his idea of it was all a big misunderstanding. But he'll go to Carlin next because he thinks he's Carlin.
George Carlin?
Right, he thinks he's George Carlin. So when Jimmy says George Carlin, he means himself. Because that bit, the big Jimmy Dore bit about that kind of it's like about a topic and it kind of sums up the whole topic. Like how like Carlin has that thing about stuff. And you're like, wow, that bit is really just a whole thing about stuff. And it's so masterfully written. And Jimmy has that bit that's about the yeah, I got nothing. I think it. I was gonna say it's actually a bit that doesn't exist. That's still Kurt's.
That's Bill Hicks. That's Sam Kenison.
No. Also, Sam Kenison was honest in what he felt. He wasn't just fucking with people. He wasn't just going up there to counter the status quo for the sake of it. He was talking about moments of where the heart of society is disassociated from what it's actually doing, and that seems incongruous. That's not the same thing as just going up there to offend people for the sake of it.
That's Don Rickles.
Boomers.
It's not Don Rickles. Don Rickles is literally there letting a valve off about racial tension to a mixed crowd all the time. That's what he's doing. And he can get away with it because he looked like a frog.
Oh, you mean boomers? Jimmy, the comedy doesn't even figure in. Upholding its values, they shit on the sidewalk there.
I know.
You have. I mean, but the thing is, this
let's
all
finish
made
reading
up.
this.
Okay.
Right. So if they can shit on the sidewalk, you should be able to shit on the stage.
Given the feedback and to avoid any potential negative impact on both our club and the artists involved, as well as to maintain the harmony within our community, we believe the most responsible course of action is to not move forward with the shows for Dave Smith.
Well, I get it. He's a scumbag racist.
So
Dave Smith doesn't align.
Dave Smith.
Luis Gomez.
Dave Smith, who's the anti-war guy who just dismantled people about their support for the genocide in Gaza. That guy.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a great bit. The dismantling people for their support of the genocide in Gaza. I can see. Yeah, it just sounds like it's really a kumbaya comedy. It's the great equalizer. That's what comedy is. You know what I mean? Takes a uncomfortable thought and makes it comfortable, and that's what makes you uncomfortable, is that you're laughing along with something you can't believe you believe. Is it weird that he doesn't seem like he's describing comedians at all? I had no problem with people fucking stand on a street corner with a fucking bullhorn, but don't call it comedy.
Well, I bet you they're not familiar with that work. They probably know him from the Legion of Skanks podcast.
So then also Luis J. Gomez. Now, I'm not totally familiar with who he is.
So he must be a real comic then.
Well, I would say he's the ringleader of this group.
Okay. Okay.
Big J. Wait, where's Big J?
So hang on.
Are these all his? I guess these are all his manager's clients. So his manager kind of specializes in unfunny dicks. Is that what? Is that the idea?
So then,
Jay wasn't even on it.
Jim Florentine.
I don't know why he got grouped in.
I don't understand. And
because I've done shows with Jim. Jim is very Trumpy, and he does some writing, but a good portion of what he does is more commentary than comedy sometimes. I mean, I don't know what his full hour's like, but that's, having done shows with him, that's where I would go. I don't think he's an unfunny guy, and I don't agree with him politically, and I don't find him offensive per se, but I can see why, if they had issue with any of these other, that's probably where it came from.
it says, sadly, Kurt Metzger.
Yeah, it was a deep cut. That's why I have sympathy for her, because she didn't want to do it.
This decision was not made lightly, and we want to ensure it does not reflect on your talent and the quality of your work, but it reflects on how mental we are at this comedy club and how mental our community is and how demented and ridiculous a comedy booker thinks that they have to consult outside advocacy groups to let her know how to book her own comedy club.
Well, the weird thing is like, why would you want to perform at a club with those kind of rules? If you're paid to stand, if you're being paid to stand on their stage, they can either pay you to do your show, or you can say, if they give you any rules about your show, just like doing a college gig or a daytime gig at a park, you're not going to do the same gig you do on a late night Friday. And if you are, there's something fucking wrong with you. So say no. Get together with those guys and fill a theater.
Comedy
right.
clubs are not supposed to be a safe space.
Yeah, they are. They're a safe space for comedy. That said, the club gets to set its tone. If you have a clean club, I'm not going to play there. It's just not going to happen. And if you book me accidentally and you're like, oh, we just found out he swears during his show, we got to cut him loose. Because that's what their club is, because they build a clientele based on that. Cool. Maybe this community ain't so good with comedy. Maybe they're a little edgy about it. Maybe they take shit very sensitively and they're just putting their toe back in the comedy. They don't want to, they're not ready for, the real shit yet, They're just they're a light beer crowd. They're not ready for the hot shot of heroin.
Comedy clubs are explain it now.
I'm going to mansplain it.
Thanks. Oh, boomer mansplanation coming through.
People don't want to go to a comedy club.
Why are the advocacy groups women? Is that why it's mansplaining? Or is the woman who owns the club, is that what it is? That's why it's mansplaining? I mean, it sure isn't comedy splaining. Club
and feel like they have the same ethos they do when they go to an office, when they go to work. They go to comedy clubs to be free of that shit.
I know.
Right, but I think a lot of these folks that go to this thing probably want to be able to laugh kind of at a generalized humor. They're leaning in stuff that's not political or doesn't touch any real hot topics, and are just looking for more pedestrian comedy because the rest of their time, let's say they run a lot of advocacy groups, and they're already like dealing with this shit all the time. So they'd rather come in there and get their laugh on about fucking what is the deal with Hot Pockets. Fine. It's their club. And if you're going to come in there just like, it's the trans, that's the problem, and they're not having it, that's on you. Find another fucking venue. You're not being canceled.
You would think people that shit on the sidewalk would understand freedom.
So it keeps.
I don't think they're the same people. I don't. If they're selling tickets and they're going to refund them, they're not selling them to the people who shit on the sidewalk.
Going. We will also ensure that any tickets sold are refunded promptly to our patrons, and we will communicate the decision to them with the sensitivity and respect. So
that's what I'm doing.
Any comedy club wrapped up in words like sensitivity and community values, and that's not a real comedy club. They're cosplaying comedy, and what they're doing.
It's always a projection, isn't it, kids?
Doing is practicing groupthink. Because if you go outside their groupthink, no matter how funny you are,
no, I think it does matter, and I think also funny does. Again, I don't believe there's a single topic. I've never had a problem joking about any topic. I've only walked I think I've walked like 3 people in the last 20 years, and the last one was La Jolla, I think the comedy store down there, where a drunk lady inverted what I was saying, totally thought, and the rest of the audience was very confused because they were like, no, he's saying that in a character voice, ma'am. And she's like, fuck you, bastard. And she fell down. It was very funny. It gave me 20 minutes of free shit. But in general, I don't really have a problem. I think anybody who's watched my show, especially the improv shows at Flappers, is there a topic that I've shied away from because I'm like, ugh, or that the audience got uptight about when I covered it? No, because I'm funny. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's again, controversy is not comedy. You don't get points for just being edgy, and Jimmy and Kurt think you do. It's not their fault you're not laughing. It's your fault. You just don't understand how funny their rantings are. That's what this is. And I'm bored of them already. But I like you guys. Hi, chat room. Shall we move on to someone else who thinks they're victimized? I mean, the snowflaking that's going on right now is fucking ridiculous. By the way, like, subscribe, share the show. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Cup of coffee a month. I mean, what do I deserve? What do you think? What do you think? Eh? What do you think? What do you think his show's worth? There's the Venmo over there. If you're like, hey, that's a good point. He makes a good guy. I like him. I like his point. That's good. You know what? Okay. Here's $6.66. Whatever works. And if you can't afford to, please just share the show, do all the free stuff, subscribe while you're at it.